I was almost finished with a 100-mile bike ride when something happened on a trail in Elgin, Illinois, that I still can't explain. It was getting dark. I was alone, heading toward a forested section of the trail, when I suddenly heard a sentence in my own head, "Please don't take me." At the time, I had no idea what those words meant. A few minutes later, I would see something waiting for me inside those trees. I was on a very long bike ride in Elgin, Illinois. I'd already traveled close to 100 miles that day, and by the time I reached the trail heading north toward Carpentersville, I was exhausted. The sun was getting lower. I knew I didn't have much daylight left. The trail was relatively quiet, with trees surrounding parts of it and a self-storage facility sitting behind a chain-link fence on the right side. I stopped for a few minutes to finish my food and drink some water before getting back on my bike. That's when something strange happened. A sentence suddenly appeared in my head. "Please don't take me. Do you realize how late it is? I'll have to call my dad to pick me up because it'll be too dark to see, and that'll be embarrassing." I remember being confused. Why had I thought that? Nothing had happened. There was no one around me. Nothing had made me feel threatened. It almost felt like I hadn't created the thought myself. It felt like I'd heard myself say those words before, and somehow they were being replayed inside my head. I actually said out loud, "That was odd." Then I started walking my bike toward the next section of the trail. Ahead of me was an opening leading into the woods. As I got closer, I suddenly felt like I shouldn't go through it. I stopped. I stared into the trees. I couldn't explain why, but something about that opening felt wrong. Then, without really thinking about it, I said out loud, "That's a portal." The words surprised even me. I stood there for a few seconds, staring into the darkness between the trees. And then I noticed something. On the right side of the trail, partially hidden behind branches and brush, something was watching me. First, I thought it was a dog. It was low to the ground. But when I looked closer, I realized it wasn't a dog. Its entire body was pitch black, blacker than anything I'd ever seen. And the only thing I could clearly make out were two pale eyes staring directly at me. We made eye contact, and then started moving toward me. First, I didn't move. I just watched it. The thing was slowly coming closer, but something about the way it moved didn't make sense. There were no footsteps, no rustling leaves, no branches snapping. It was completely silent. Then I noticed its front limbs. They didn't look like normal animal legs. They looked more like arms. They were bent forward at strange angles, almost like the arms of a praying mantis. For a moment, I thought I could even see fingers. I didn't know what I was looking at, but my instincts told me one thing. If it attacked me, I needed to be ready. I looked down at my bike. In my head, I imagined grabbing it, lifting it over my head, and throwing it at the thing. The moment I had that thought, it stopped. It just stood there, staring at me. Then, without any warning, it launched itself toward me. I can't really describe how fast it moved. There was no time to react. One moment it was several feet away. The next, it was coming straight at me, and then everything went black. I couldn't see the trail. I couldn't see the trees. I couldn't even see the creature. There was just darkness. Then I heard something. My own voice. The exact same words I'd heard inside my head earlier. "Please don't take me. Do you realize how late it is? I'll have to call my dad to pick me up because it'll be too dark to see, and that'll be embarrassing." The same sentence. Again. But this time it didn't feel like a thought. It sounded like I was actually hearing myself. Then my vision suddenly returned. I was still on the trail, but I was facing a completely different direction, and I was farther back than where I'd been standing. I tried to move. Nothing happened. I tried moving my arms. Nothing. My legs. Nothing. Even my fingers wouldn't move. The only parts of my body I could control were my eyes and my head. I looked around, trying to understand what had happened. Then I saw it, standing directly in front of me. It was no longer crouched down. It was standing upright, and it was taller than me. I'm about 5'8". This thing was noticeably taller. His body was still completely black, but its eyes had changed. They weren't white anymore. They were dark blue, and it was just standing there, watching me. I couldn't move. And somehow, the strangest part wasn't the fear. It was the fact that I wanted to know. I looked down at my body again. I tried moving my hand. Nothing. I tried moving one finger. Still nothing. It felt as if my entire body had been frozen in place. My mind started trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was some kind of paralysis. Maybe I was dreaming. But the thing standing in front of me made it impossible to believe any normal explanation. It didn't move. It just watched me. So instead of panicking, I decided to ask it a question. Not out loud. I spoke to it inside my head. "Did you freeze my body?" It didn't respond. I waited. Nothing. Then, almost out of frustration, I thought, this is really annoying. Still nothing. I stared directly into its dark blue eyes. Then I thought, say something. That's when it finally reacted. Its body suddenly moved backward by half a step. Its head tilted back slightly. It almost looked surprised. Then it spoke. 2 words. "You're brave." The way it said it was strange. It didn't sound angry. It sounded shocked. Almost as if my reaction wasn't what it had expected. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then the creature turned toward the chain-link fence beside the trail. I watched it carefully. It seemed like it was about to walk away, but instead, it suddenly accelerated. There was no normal running motion. It was more like its entire body was being pulled rapidly through space. 1 second it was standing beside me. The next it shot toward the fence. And then it was gone. The closest comparison I can make is the way something disappears when it enters warp speed. There was no sound, no movement in the trees, nothing, just empty space. A few moments later, I could finally move again. I looked around the trail. Everything appeared completely normal. The fence was still there. The trees were still. My bike was still with me, but I knew something had happened. To this day, I don't know what that thing was. I don't know why it appeared, and I don't know what it meant when it called me brave. But there's one detail I still can't explain. Before I ever saw that thing, I had already heard myself say, "Please don't take me." And after it launched at me, I heard those exact same words again. Sometimes I wonder if my mind somehow knew what was coming, or if someone or something had already been watching me before I ever reached that forest. Because maybe the creature wasn't the first strange thing that happened that night. Maybe it was the second. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel for more unexplained encounters. And if you think you know what that thing was, let me know in the comments. Until next time, stay safe and don't go into the woods alone.